welcome. My name is Kubrab. I'm coming to you from Seattle area in Washington. And I have a guest with me, a very special guest with me, Dr. Tomas Solomon. Dr. Tomas Solomon, I'm sure he will explain himself a little bit more than I will do, but let me just do a little bit of his resume. Let me just share with you. Dr. Tomas comes from Eritrea. It's a long journey which we'll touch. After he came here, he held his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and then he has 2 masters, one in network administration, I believe, and the other one is in data systems. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Tomas. And then later he has he had his doctorate degree in engineering management. Dr. Tomas currently is an IT director of a well-known corporate agency or organization in the United States. The reason that we're having this conversation is simply to help inspire the immigrant population in general, but the Eritrean population also in particular, specifically the second generation immigrants, to help see, how we can grow up the ladders of the land of opportunity, and how we can be of help and support both to the nation that we're living in and to the nation where we come from. We will definitely discuss more. This conversation is just a conversation, and it's going to be as authentic as it could be. Dr. Tomas, welcome, and I appreciate you giving me the time to be able to record our conversation here.
Thank you, Kabri, for inviting me, and I really appreciate this opportunity, and I would love to share my stories with your viewers.
Yeah. Thank you. Did you have any, did I make any mistakes on your resume? Just the skeleton of it.
Yeah, just minor. My first master's is in computer networking. The second one is in data science.
You see, I knew I wasn't sure about that. Thank you for correcting me.
No problem.
So I read your book with much enthusiasm, and I have to tell you that I was so impressed, and I was taken by the content of your book here, The Unlikely Journey. Whoever has not gotten this book, The Unlikely Journey is a name by Dr. Tomas Solomon, from a child soldier in Africa to tech director of a major corporation in America, is the title of the book. I read it in the midst of my busy schedule. I just had to carve time to read it, and it took me less than a week to finish it. You can tell how much it was attractive to me, and how I was impressed. But I want to take you back to the very first day you wanted to write, or you had the impression that I should write a book. What led you to that? What were you thinking?
Yeah, so my motivation to write this book goes a few years.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, my kids were coming of age. They were getting curious a little bit, asking a lot of questions. They wanted to know more about my background. And for some reason, at that time, I was thinking it was not the right time to share. I was attempting to deflect their questions for the most part, right? I used to joke around saying, my stories are rated PG-13, meaning they have to be 13 and over for them to learn about, my difficult upbringing and all that stuff. But then there were times that I start thinking, maybe I need to put this into words, write a book and share it with the greater public, including my kids, right? and inspire some folks. I mean, especially those going through difficult times or that went through difficult times, trying to navigate their way in the corporate world, or college students trying to figure out how do you basically go from here, kind of thing. And also our children, right, coming from Eritrea and other countries, living in America. I think it could be a way to connect with our children, right? Where we came from, the kind of struggles that we went through, and why we are here, and what we do. A lot of kids, they don't even know what we do at work, right? So this is an opportunity not only for my kids, but also our children, also to learn, just in general, what life was back home and all that. So these are the motivations that pushed me a little bit to start writing. Actually, to be honest, I was thinking maybe when I turned 60, then that's when I start writing about autobiography, right? I never felt comfortable at this time to write about my biography, right? I started just to jot down some memories, but then I got carried over, and then I ended up finishing this book.
That's so you were writing it as a reflection in hopes that it would, you would help document your experience, and by that way it would just help for your kids, and then you get a bigger audience of maybe there could be more who would be benefiting. So and as you were kind of shaping the form of the book of a book, when you are thinking, okay, I should enlarge it to a bigger, wider readership, who were your target audience that you were thinking beyond your kids? Who else were you thinking? I know you mentioned our kids in general in the Eritrean population. Were you thinking more specifically, or a wider range of population as well?
Yeah, initially, actually, like I said, my motivation was just to share my experiences with my kids and our kids, right? But then as I start writing about it, I began to see a certain type of population that may benefit from this book, right? My goal is basically to inspire, right? And inspiration for those who may have difficult upbringing.
Mhm.
Could be in a third world country. It could be even here in the US, going through difficult times. The point I try to make with the book is your upbringing or where you start should not hinder, where you need to go or what dreams you want to achieve. Rather, it should be about the determination, the vision, the hard work, education, everything, the connections that you form, everything that you do should be the main drivers for success. So as I start forming my idea in this pattern, I began to see more and more people that can benefit from this book, right? Like I stated earlier, besides children, our children, anyone in college, trying to learn about how to navigate the corporate world. This is um, this is a particular target audience that I am focusing on. I see myself, not knowing exactly which direction I need to go. What is it going to take to succeed in the corporate world? So I try to share some experiences. What makes, people successful in the things that they do, right? What do hiring managers look at? How do you position yourself so you can work through your career path, and all those kind of things I began to see as I started writing. Beyond that, and when I reflect back to my own, path, right? Honestly, I would be even very, very pleased if just one person from some remote part of the world, whether it is in the environments that we grew up in, or in some refugee camp, getting a hold of this book, using it as a roadmap for them to see that, well, this is not going to define my future. I have an opportunity to even follow this path and become successful one day, right? These are the kind of things that I would like to share. And I hope that's what I want my readers to take away from this book.
Yeah, it definitely portrays about, the odds of your childhood. As you have mentioned, the unlikeliness of where you would be at, with a huge projection as to where you're at now. It could seem unlikely if you were to see it from where you started at. And let's go back to how you started, where you started. You've mentioned about, and I don't want to be a spoiler. I don't want to give a spoiler alert to the details of, how you passed through in during your childhood under the land where we used to call the Harameret Eritrea, a land that was occupied by the EPLF then, in the school called Bet Mutsora Revolution School. I want to please take us back to at least one moment or two as on your most terrifying moment, where you almost thought that you were going to die or you were going to lose your loved ones. What was the most terrifying moment that you've had during your childhood?
Wow. There were there were several moments that in the book you'll find out that almost it was a constant struggle, right? There were so many difficult times that I can list, but I want to take, actually, I just thought about, the cover of the book, right? What I have in the cover. So if you see that is made up of, like, I had to put together 4 or 5 different pictures together to say something about, an event that I remember. This is sometime in 1985. I remember that there was so much, aerial bombardments, like from Ethiopian warplanes, and there was scarcity of food, water. It was very, very difficult time. Caretakers, some reason, I don't remember the reasons they were away. They were not around, majority of them. So for kids, for about 100 kids, there were only a couple of caretakers that were left. Everybody else had gone for some kind of military exercise or something like that. I don't remember exactly why they were not around. And for about 100 kids, there was only one jerry can. You remember the jerry cans, right? The yellow jerry cans. There was just one jerry can of water for the entire day. So they knew that wasn't going to be enough for everybody. So everybody had to wait in that scorching sun. It was too hot. We had to wait till midday to get half a cup of water to just drink, right? So I remember at that time where I'm sitting on that book, wondering like whether I was gonna live until I was 25 years old, and if I was gonna make it to 25 years old. Like I was thinking about that, so that stayed in my mind, and I decided to make that cover the book.
That was the impression, that imprintable impression in your mind as you think of your possibly worse nightmares or doubts looking ahead as a child.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And that a jerry can is just to specify, how many liters of water would that be? Is it about 10
About
liters or so?
maybe 10 liters.
10 liters.
I'm not sure, maybe 10 liters.
Among how many kids?
100 kids.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, maybe 10.
Yeah. That's powerful. Okay, and from what I am trained, from the background that I'm trained, and there's a huge science behind the adverse childhood experiences, and showing that the childhood trauma can impact one's health, mental health, ability to grow up the stairs of success. All of this is there as a science, definitely, and it really, there is a significant evidence. There's also another significant evidence that supports it. This trauma can also be replaced or won over or substituted or covered or healed by another force, force, or more overwhelming force that would enable someone to go through all the heights, all the success levels that they need to go. So my question to you is, despite all of this challenge that you'd face during your childhood, on a daily basis, facing the air bombardments, the scarcity, the fact that you were, of course, under caregivers, but you were away from your family for the most part. Despite all of this, what held you together? What do you think was your energy that gave you the resilience to come out as the person that you are at?
Yeah, honestly, I have no clue. I mean, given your expertise, you probably have more insights into this, right? But I can guess.
Yeah.
So getting exposed to this kind of environment early on, right? Maybe that shaped my belief that no problem is too big to solve, right? Having experiences at that age, we did not know anything different. If you ask me honestly, I thought everybody had to go through that phase, right? For me, it was not something that I haven't seen it as like a traumatic situation, to be honest with you. Even though, reflecting back, this is something you wouldn't want any child to go through, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is having those experiences early on, I learned to adapt to those, accept those environments as normal, adapt to it, and use it, to survive, basically. Deep in me, maybe there's this confidence that with persistence, solutions can be found easily, right? Now, when I think about it more, if I look at my professional career, for the most part, I've been a solution architect, right? Maybe that's why I was inclined to go in that direction, finding solutions for difficult problems, right? That's what solution architects do. So either, adapting to difficult situations and coming up with solutions to survive had something to do with it, or it just happened. I have absolutely no clue, but I'm trying to guess. Yeah.
I think that's yeah, I don't want to get into the details of what the forces of resilience were, but there were some. There definitely was some that were holding you together, that made you see, beyond the challenge, the possibility that there was hope in you, that, behind the bombardments, there is winning, that you could face those challenges, and then you can come up with some sort of a solution, this way or another. But you still had some hope in you that kept you going and never made you give up about the problems, as big as they could be, which also translated into the kind of expertise that you've developed. Now you're a solution architect, because you've seen the worst of problems that were solved, and now you're offering that experience, which is a beautiful concept to me. Just to go a little bit deeper into without having to go depth into the weeds, there's what they call post-traumatic stress. PTSD comes from, PTS is post-traumatic stress. And there's a concept that's called PTG as well, post-traumatic growth. A certain trauma, not all trauma is devastating. Some of it can also help grow a person, which is what we call resilience. So I find it to be very fascinating to see that, not all that have passed through trauma are doomed to stress or something. They can also make the best out of it. Which also leads me to the next question about your ethics, your work ethics. Your reading at your book, it felt like, is this one Thomas that I'm reading about? You were, engaged in a lot of projects that demanded full time of your life, of your brain energy, and you were going to school that demanded more than full time of your time as well. And you're a parent and a husband and to a family. But through this all, it just didn't come. Your success didn't just pop up. It was a result of a work ethic that you have put in. And you mentioned about that, about your mom, you sharing the work ethic from your mother. Take me back to what moments you remember on your mom's work ethic, and if there's anything that you also recall about your dad that made you the person that you are.
Yeah, let me start with the last one. My dad, I can't say anything because he passed away before I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that I can even remember his face. So all my memories are basically from, what I was told, right? My mom, actually, anyone reading the book, probably if there is a hero in that book, it's gonna be my mom, right? In the book, I tried to talk about all the struggles that she had to pass through this to survive, and also for us, right?
Yeah.
I've never done the connection before I started writing the book. I thought it just naturally happened, right? But when I go back and start reflecting, found out that there are so many similarities between me and her, right? The path she went through and the path that I followed.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that she was still going to school while she had 4 kids. I was going to school while I had 4 kids, right? Early in 1970s, she got into computer programming. At the time, they were using punch cards and all those kind of things, right? Working for a telecommunications company. Right after college, I started working for a telecommunications company, doing programming work, right? Similarities there.
Yeah.
I've seen her work tirelessly. I mean, until she finishes her work, she would not go to sleep. I kind of developed the same habit. I gotta, whatever that I have, whether it's 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it takes, I have to stay up and complete whatever I plan to complete, right? Those kind of things I've seen her doing, and I have those kind of things. She wrote a book, and here I am, I'm following, writing a book of my own, right? So I don't think I planned this is what my mom did and I got to do it kind of thing. I don't remember thinking that way. It just happened naturally, right? But when I go back and reflect, oh wow, these are some things that I picked subconsciously, right? And I appreciate that. Yeah, probably that's a huge influence in the things that I do.
It's amazing. I didn't even know that your mom wrote a book. If you don't mind sharing the title of the book, if we can find it for the viewers as well. If it's
Yeah. The fate of the unborn child.
The Fate of the Unborn Child.
Yeah, the fate of the unborn child. She also talks. It's a fiction based on true story. She also talks about experiences in Sahel and all that. Came out about 11 years ago, and she wrote it in English and Tigrinya, and that is available in Amazon.
It is in Tigrinya and English as well. That's quite
Yeah.
impressive. Now I can see the parallels between you and your mom. Definitely, definitely. It's yeah, incredible story. I also wanted to point out that the first 5 years, although you don't remember, there definitely is something that is being left into your personality, I can say. So you've had, they say, the role of healthy parenting during the first 3 years is by far more deeper is by far more deeper than the role of parenting between 3 years to 17 years. The
Oh, really?
that the neuroscience tells us that there is more impact to the person and the personality during the first 3 years than any other year. So I can see, I can also sense that your dad, this way or another, must have had some contribution to the person
Oh,
that,
I agree.
oh,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about fatherhood now, I'm wondering if any or all of your kids have either read or did you narrate the story? What was their reaction to the stories that you shared after they turned 13? And how did you kind of become the father that you are now without having experienced, a father, at least in your memorable years?
Yeah. Yeah. One of my children is 16. The other one is 14. The 16-year-old already finished it, and the 14-year-old, he's scheduled to finish it today or tomorrow, most probably today.
Tell him
Uh,
that I beat him to that.
yeah, I'll tell you that. It's interesting, you asked if I narrated it for them. Actually, they were narrating it back to me. They would finish a couple of chapters. They would come tell me, but what made them laugh, what made them kind of sad, and what inspired them, and all those kind of things. So they've been sharing that with me. What impressed me the most, though, I showed them the locations, where Arag, Alibet, Ararem, Kimball, and all those places are, like in Google Earth, right?
Mhm.
I was impressed. One of my kids, he went back, found those locations in his cell phone in Google Maps. He tagged those locations, he found them, he tagged them, and he showed them to me. I mean, these are places that it is very, very difficult to find on the map, right? Actually, I had to spend hours and hours trying to figure out based on my memory from like 30 something years, right? He was able to do that. I was like, oh, wow, how did you do that? You only seen it one time. And I was very impressed to see that. It shows that, how much interested he is in the stories.
Absolutely. And it also tells me that his computer mastery and savvy running in the family as well.
I learned new thing from him. I never thought that you could go on Google Maps and you can tag locations. I was like, wow, that is nice.
Impressive. Yeah. And the second part of my question was, how did he navigate through being a father?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I would say learning on the job, right? Yeah, I think that's what most of us do anyway, right? Um, it's funny. The first time we had a baby, it was just Daddy and me. We came from the hospital. We brought the kid home, and I remember that first night thinking, "What are we supposed to be doing now?" Right? And but then I believe, parenting come instinctively sometimes, like some aspects of parenting, right? Quickly adjusted to it. I've been enjoying it ever since. And that's why we have 4 kids now, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's and can you tell me a little bit about your I'm sure you've mentioned about you mentioned Betty and you discussed about how I'm not gonna again spoil that here, but what did you think Betty and the making of a family, how did that help you to be the person that you're at now in terms of professionally? Is there any connection that you see between your professional, academic, and family life?
Yeah. Actually, earlier we talked about, the connections that I have with my mom, right?
Yeah.
If I had to compare, there is more similarity between my wife and my mom than my mom and I.
Oh, that's
Actually, a lot of people notice that too, people that know both of them, right? In my professional career and everything that I do, of course, she was the cornerstone
Mhm.
in so many different ways. I can list so many different examples there. Um, some to mention, if I have any idea, she's the first one that I bounce that idea with. More often than not, she happens to be, with the right ideas, right? Uh, so every decision that I made since we met, basically she was a part of it. Uh, some of them were her ideas, right? I remember when I did my second master's degree, right? I was planning to register. I was so excited about it. I was planning to register for that program. I came and shared with her, and she was also planning to finish her degree, she was trying to become a nurse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that she was trying to register to complete that degree also. And then we talked. I said, you know what? I already have a master's degree. Why do I need a second one? Just go do it. And she was like, no, you go do it. Right? She was pushing me to get my second, not even finishing her. I mean, we had to go back and forth on that for days. Finally, she convinced me. She came with a very good reasons why I should go after the master's degree for data science. So she had actually a part in that decision, right? She pushed really hard for that. She put her own, uh, her
Career.
own career goals on hold, just so I get that. Um, it was it was it was a decision that I wasn't gonna go forward with, but she had very good reasons. We were expecting second child. She wanted to finish, having our kids first and then go back to school. So that was the reason that I was convinced to go get the second master's degree. Even for the PhD degree, for the doctorate degree, 5 years before I decided to enroll, she was pushing for it. She always emphasized, "You got the potential. Why don't you go for it?" She was pushing for like 5 years. And then 5 years later, I saw exactly what she was talking about. I felt like that was a moment that I need to go back and get my doctorate degree. And so she's credited for that. She pushed for like 5 years before I even made that decision to go get it. So in so many different ways, these are some examples that I'm talking about, right? So in so many different ways, she has a part in everything that I did, whether it is moving to a different career, moving to a different job. I mean, all those things, it is basically a collective decision.
That's amazing. She's your biggest cheerleader, I can see, and also a support in terms of helping in bouncing ideas, a sounding board, which definitely has a tremendous role to any man's success, any man or woman's success. The partnership that you forge there is the primary circle that definitely defines the trajectory of any individual. I can relate to that as well.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's go back now to the bigger picture in terms of you going through all of this, coming to America. Now you're an American Eritrean citizen. You have kids who are more American than Eritrean, to be frank, in terms of how they feel. And there's a huge outflux of Eritreans from Eritrea, families all over the world. How do you see the next generation of Eritrean excellence could play a role to the future of Eritrea? I know you're a justice seeker, an ardent justice seeker of Eritrea as well. Your advocacy for Eritrea's justice is also pronounced everywhere. So how do you see, your excellence could hopefully help to the future of Eritrea? And second, the pursuit of excellence to our younger ones, to our younger generation. How do you think will that play out to the future of Eritrea?
I think at this time, the situation in Eritrea, as everybody knows, it is as worse as it could possibly be, right?
I
A
agree.
lot of Eritreans are leaving the country, living in Western countries, other countries in Africa, everywhere, right? Um, I mean, that's not going to be this way forever. Things are going to change. Eventually, the dictator is going to go. I mean, people seem to be fed up. Almost every Eritrean seems to be fed up with the way things are going. So at some point, it's going to change, right? If there is if there is a country that is most hopeless at this time, Eritrea ranks on the top, right? On the top right now. But when I think about the future, I think there is a brighter side to it when I think about it, right? The fact that most people are coming to an understanding this is not the way the country should be run is a positive thing, right? People are coming to an agreement that something needs to be done.
Yeah.
With this, probably the transition is not going to be as chaotic as what people fear it to be, right? That level of understanding is there. It's just one step is needed for this dictator to go, the system to be completely transformed, and for change to come in Eritrea. With this, I see there are so many different ways. In fact, I may be a little bit too optimistic, but I can see Eritrea becoming one of the fastest growing economies in Africa, post dictatorship Eritrea. The reason I say that is I see there is a lot of expertise, knowledge, wealth, and all that Eritreans have all over the world, right? So with the dictatorship gone, the migration pattern might change. I mean, people will think about, economic opportunities, investment opportunities, revitalizing the economy. And all this, I think, is going to play a center stage more than anything else, more than the political issues that we have, right? You focus on the political issues when you have nothing else to worry about, right? But if the economy is growing, if the opportunities are there, I think a lot of Eritreans will go back, invest, and revive the economy. This will be very critical, and then very promising from what I see, right? In addition to that, we should not underestimate the political culture that we have here in America, other Western countries, and all that. People are exposed to democratic governance, democratic values and principles, and all this, right? So post-dictatorship Eritrea, this is not going to be a foreign concept to many Eritreans. So for people to quickly adapt to this mentality, I think we will have a good chance, I believe. In addition, with all the young generation living Eritrea at this time, of course, there is a gap in the expertise, knowledge, and all those kind of things, right? Eritreans going back, it may bridge the skills gap, right? We have so many doctors, so many engineers, so many entrepreneurs, all over the world, right? For a small country like Eritrea, with the kind of resources that it has and the human capital, this could turn things around. One more thing, the fact that we are dispersed all over the world, we are gaining different types of experiences. There are people in so many different countries learning different cultures, language, and all that. This may also attract foreign companies to invest in Eritrea, right? if you have the right people with the right mindset, knowing the language that the countries, the investors are from, this may motivate even foreign investors to do business in Eritrea. Provided that change comes, we have a democratic government or transition into a democratic government. I have really, really great hopes this is going to turn for the positive.
Oh, that's quite inspiring. Hope in inspiring kind of perspective. And I always also think about all of the entrepreneurs, the businessmen who are doing business around Eritrea and getting their, the national awards of investments, entrepreneurship in the African nations. All of them, most of them being from Eritrea, really gives me hope that the post-tyranny, post-dictatorship in Eritrea is hopeful. It is bright, as you mentioned, on condition that there is a transition to a democratic Eritrea, or a change to a democratic Eritrea as well. Now that's the hope. That's what we're hoping we will have. It's not on the ground yet. What do you think we should do as professionals, as Eritreans, seeking the best for Eritrea outside of Eritrea, but who have not yet had the opportunity to using it back home? What should we do here in diaspora? What do you see that we should do here and now?
Yeah, just to add to the point you just made, right? Yeah, there are so many successful Eritreans in Africa and in Europe, America, and all over the world, right? I mean, we're talking here about my experiences, but I mean, if you look at the Eritrean story, I mean, my story is not that much different from what majority of Eritreans went through, right? These are things that are shaping, even the most successful people out there, learning from their own struggles, turning those into opportunities and becoming, successful in the environments that allow them to flourish, right? So all that is needed is basically for change to come to Eritrea, so all these people could use that environment to not only improve their own lives, but also change the lives of Eritreans back home, right? Going back to the question you asked me about the opposition, I always viewed Eritrea's problem is not only political, right? I mean, the economy is being shattered, right? People have left the country, even if the government was going to go, even the dictator was going to go, we're still going to be facing a lot of challenges, and all those kind of things are not going to be like with a turn of a switch. Things are not going to be rosy, right? So in line to the activities, that the activism work that we have to bring change in Eritrea, I believe we should also make it part of our struggle to look post-dictatorship Eritrea and what we can do to prepare for rebuilding the country, right? Not everybody is a politician. You don't expect everybody to be heavily involved in politics, but in their area of expertise, there are things that they can do to even envision, a free and democratic Eritrea, and see what they can do now that will help in the future, right? So these are the kind of things that we should push forward. I mean, changing people's mentality. I think the opposition has done significant work in that. If there is one success that we can take credit for, is the way they see the current government in Eritrea, right? The mentality, a lot of Eritreans now understand what is good, what is bad, right? It's just that change needs to happen for people to basically rally for that. Um, in addition to that achievement, I think we should focus on um, writing, whatever, could be blueprints, right? Blueprints for whether it is related to construction, related to the economy, related to investment, health system in Eritrea. All these things, we have more than enough expertise to brainstorm, prepare themselves, to provide the future government of Eritrea, with the tools, that is needed to quickly make the change, transition into a flourishing economy.
That's I also now, of course, we were focused on your book and a career path from childhood all the way here. But I also have a lot. I know that you have a lot of portfolio under you in terms of what you do for, the better of Eritrea. One of which is you're still currently the chairman of the ERIPS. I'm thinking about how that is playing out into making sure that the blueprint, as you've mentioned, we talk about, how should we handle the issue of Tigray, for example. It definitely could run as a foreign policy to me. It's Eritrea's foreign policy. How are we going to handle our foreign friends and our neighborhood, in the regional neighborhood, as to how what should Eritrea's policy be around its neighbors? Is a good policy, foreign policy. Most of the time, the current tyrant's policy is based on his whim, on his personal interaction or hate towards people. That should turn out to be that's where we're getting into. But I don't want to get into the details, every piece of it. And thinking about my area of expertise, also I'm thinking about, what should a family look like? Not that we have to recreate a family definition, but what is a true Eritrean family value? What are the parts of it that have been dismantled? And what are the policies that would, cause healing to a family and moving on to a community and all that? There is a policy. There is a department of children, youth, and families that I'm working at. So I can also see as to how we can contribute to that effect. How about to the next generation? Have you ever thought about, our kids? The next generation is definitely, as you've mentioned, by far more bigger in terms of the audience, more exposed to a lot of more opportunities. And also, when you think about the future, you want to think about the kids, the younger generation as well. Any thoughts that comes to your mind as to what we could and should and ought to the youth in diaspora?
Yeah. First, just a minor correction. I was basically the chairman of the Eritrean Research Institute for Policy and Strategy. I finished my tenure. Now it's been transitioned to someone else. I was there for 4 years. But still, I'm an active member of the organization. So there's a lot of work. That REPS was formed with that vision. Our problem extends beyond, political issues that we have. I mean, the country is almost non-existent. It's a failed state. We can confidently say. I don't even know how people are able to run life in Eritrea at this time, right? With no hospitals functioning, with no running electricity all the time, no running water, shortages, and all these kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Our problem is deeper than just political differences. So preparing for those kind of things, at least coming up with a solution, it got to be comprehensive, and that's what the role of REPS and other professionals should be, right? Talking about the experiences that you mentioned about the family, I see you guys are going to have even bigger problems than anybody else, right? The kind of the psychological effect of the current, mind you, we're talking about the entire nation right now, right? In fact, generations of Eritreans are going through this kind of trauma, right? So coming up with solutions for this in post PFDJ Eritrea is gonna take a lot of resources, right? So I hope you guys are preparing for it. Talking about the next generation of Eritreans, one of my motivations, I talked about this earlier, right? Making a connection with their parents, making that connection, will strengthen their willingness also to engage in Eritrean related, post PFDJ, post dictatorship development and all that, right? Now the world is connected. I mean, the idea of a country is changing with internet. These days you could do work wherever you are, you could be a consultant. You can live in America and consult in Saudi Arabia and in Eritrea, Africa, wherever that might be, right? The opportunities for the younger generation of Eritreans is also great, right? There are things that they could help as long as they are taking the route to become professionals, subject matter experts in so many different fields and all that, right? And then they could have some fulfillment by, contributing to a country of their parents' birth, right? So I hope books like the one I have will make the connection and pick their interest to contribute even more. That's what my hope is.
Yeah. Well, that is my hope as well, Dr. Thomas, and the reason of our recording our conversation for a broader audience. Again, Dr. Tomas Solomon is the author of The Unlikely Journey from a Child Soldier in Africa to Tech Director of a Major Corporation in America. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. I would like to once again thank you, Dr. Thomas, for writing this book, taking the time amidst your busy schedule, and then for also taking the time to talk with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kabri. I really appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.